Out of the darkness, you are watching the Political Vigilante. I'm Graham Elwood. I'm the Political Vigilante. Today, we're going to go over an article that came out February 9th in The Intercept by Glenn Greenwald, basically going into how corrupt and failed the Democratic Party is, specifically with pushing Tom Perez as the DNC chair and how they've slammed or slandered Keith Ellison. And the article goes into something that I firmly believe, which is in order to have a resistance to Trump, you must have a Democratic Party that is actually a liberal progressive party. And we haven't had that. The DNC has been a Wall Street, Silicon Valley millionaire pro-war party. It hasn't been a liberal progressive party of populists. And that's one of the reasons why they lost. It's a lot of people want to say it's, sexism. Everybody just doesn't want to see a woman in power. I'm sure there were some people that voted for Trump because they don't like women or don't want to see a woman in power, but you can't, that's too simple. The whole country's racist. The country is pretty racist, but it's too simple. The Democratic Party and what they're doing now, how they're handling it now, who's getting behind Perez, how they're smearing Keith Ellison. It's the same old tactics. Debbie Wasserman-Shultz, the WikiLeaks show in the last summer, how she was part of rigging the primary to prevent Bernie. And so she got fired as the head of the DNC and then quickly rehired by the Clinton campaign. How can you expect anyone to trust you? You're just doing weaselly stuff, just as weaselly as what Trump is currently doing now. And if there's going to be because what Trump is doing is becoming very, very scary. He's doing everything he said. He didn't lie to anybody, but it's scary. And you got to have real resistance. You need to have a party that has a moral compass and an ethical spine, and they do not. They just don't have it. Joe Biden and the Obama administration has gotten behind Perez. It's unbelievable what's going on. And Glenn Greenwald, the thing about him, he was very critical of the Bush administration, and everyone loved him on the left. Oh, he was this big hero. And then he was being critical of the Obama administration, and he was like marginalized. Oh, he's a nut job, whatever. And it's like, that's part of it. I'm going to back my team. I've said this a million times on this show, and I have to keep saying it, obviously, because the goddamn Democrats aren't learning a thing. And I'm not going to just back them. I'm not going to just back them. I will not do that. I will vote for all independents in 2018 if I have to. I don't care. It's bullshit if they don't get their ass in gear. So here is, we're going to start with the U.S. media, who many media outlets are very much in the pocket of the DNC. And Greenwald is going to quote one that is now finally being critical. He talks about the U.S. media's most stalwart Democratic loyalists writing in an outlet that is as much of a reliable party organ of the DNC itself, has acknowledged the severity of the destruction. Quote, the Obama years have created a Democratic Party that's essentially a smoking pile of rubble, wrote Vox's Matthew Yglesias after the 2016 debacle, adding that the story of the 21st century Democratic Party looks to be overwhelmingly the story of failure. Absolutely. And here's the thing the DNC refuses to accept. What drove the Bernie supporters, what drove that was, and a large number of the Bernie supporters were young, they were millennials. Everyone's talking, we got to get the youth involved. We got to get the youth involved. They got involved because they're just so sick of this two-party system and the corruption of the DNC, and we're all just supposed to get in line if we're liberal. And they were got behind Bernie. Because basically the Democratic Party is a bunch of corporate loyalists, as Glenn Greenwald says. And unlike the 2008 Democratic primary war, which was far more vicious and nasty but devoid of any real ideological conflict, the 2016 primary was grounded in important and substantive disputes about what the future of the party was going to be. You saw when Hillary didn't pay Bernie any mind at all. And then when he started getting some traction, all of a sudden she started saying in her speeches, oh, yeah, you know, we're going to help the poor and all this stuff. It was like, whoa. Because here's the thing. If the Democratic Party doesn't have actual liberal progressive ideas to guide it, then it doesn't matter. It does not matter. We're going to go into some more details here. But here's the problem. So you think the DNC is really going to learn since getting their ass kicked in the election? No. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. They're both millionaires. Chuck is a Wall Street guy. Pelosi's a millionaire who's just a big fan of capitalism. Who said, I'm a multimillionaire and we are capitalists. That's a quote from her. So demanding that one refrain from critiquing the Democratic Party in order to exclusively denounce Trump over and over is akin to demanding that one single-mindedly denounce cancer without worrying about who the treating doctor is or what type of research is being involved. That is a great quote, Glenn. Trump happened because the Democrats failed. I believe this wholeheartedly. He didn't just come out of nowhere. And again, I'm not excusing the racism or the rhetoric, but if you had a real candidate against Trump, it would have been crushed. I've said this before. We would be sitting here talking about, well, I guess I was talking about it in the spring last year, like, wow, in the summer when Trump's ratings were low, I was like, oh, wow, this might be the end of the Democratic Party. They've catered to this awful racist base that isn't really representative of America. And this is what they get. That's why you had so many people that just voted. 51% of Trump's people that voted for Trump did it out of spite against Hillary, just because they didn't like her, while only 36% of Hillary voters did it because they just didn't like Trump. What does that tell you about the candidacy and the Democratic Party and the Clintons? So I'll quote this. For the last 5 years, the face of the DNC was the living, breathing embodiment of everything awful about the party. The sleazy, corrupt, corporatist, and centrist hawk, Debbie Wasserman-Shultz, who as a result of WikiLeaks' publication of DNC emails, had to resign in disgrace if she got caught engaging in sustained cheating in order to ensure that Hillary Clinton would be the party's nominee. But upon resigning, she was quickly rewarded for her corruption by being named to a high position in the Clinton campaign. The Democrats, led by Joe Biden and Clinton herself, support her in vanquishing a Sanders-supported primary challenger for her seat in Congress. As a result of the support from the party establishment, as well as massive funding from corporate and banking interests, she defeated the challenger, Tim Canova, and the nation rejoiced as she returned for her 7th term in Congress. That's the thing. I mean, I've heard liberal friends of mine go, wow, hey, man, Pelosi and Wasserman-Shultz, they're good at raising money. Oh, well, then everyone still hates you. So what? You know who will raise money? The people. We don't need the money from the corporations to fund the DNC. Wasserman-Shultz was replaced as DNC chair on an interim basis by longtime party operative Donna Brazile. Donna Brazile, of course, you remember she was leaking questions to Clinton for CNN. How awful is this? How corrupt is the DNC? That's the thing. You can't sit here and just say, oh, Trump supporters are racist or they all hate women when this kind of shit is happening. We're screaming about the Russian involvement in the election, which is probably accurate. We're screaming about Comey, which is valid. But then this is like, oh, Donna Brazile was just doing her job. No. We got to scream at him equally, man. And Donna Brazile hasn't even admitted it. She has repeatedly lied about it by denying it and insinuating the emails were forged by the Russians. Well, come on now. For that misconduct, CNN fired her as anchor Jake Tapper denounced her cheating as horrifying, and CNN made the network completely uncomfortable. But Brazile continues to run the DNC to this day. Think about that. That's what he says here. Think about that. Her behavior was so unethical, dishonest, and corrupt that Jeff Zucker-led CNN denounced it and publicly disassociated itself from her. But the DNC is perfectly comfortable having her continue to lead the party until the next chair is chosen. And how am I supposed to get on board with this? You gotta be fucking kidding me. Donna Brazile is the temporary DNC chair? Oh man. So who's going to be the chair of the DNC? Keith Ellison, the first Muslim American ever elected to the U.S. Congress, and an early Sanders supporter who resides in the left wing of the party, emerged as a clear favorite. He got support from Elizabeth Warren, Jesse Jackson, Walter Mondale, John Lewis, and even our boy Chucky Goldman Sachs Schumer. But then the smear campaign, the Democratic smear campaign, is horrifying, right? They began when Israeli-American billionaire Haim Saban, the largest single funder of both the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign, smeared Ellison as an anti-Semite and anti-Israel invader and said his election would be a disaster for the relationship between the Jewish community and the Democratic Party. In the minds of the DC mavens, you can't have someone as chair of the DNC who is disliked by billionaire funders. That's the Democratic Party. See, that's their whole thinking is wrong. Wow. If the billionaire that's writing the checks doesn't like them, then we can't have them. No, get rid of the billionaire funder. How are we going to do it? I don't know. Tens and hundreds of millions of people that actually would gladly give 10, 20 bucks to a real party? I haven't given the Democratic Party money, I don't think ever. I gave Obama $10 in 2008 because I couldn't stand to see Sarah Palin even come near the White House. New York Times jumped on the articles to bash Keith Ellison. They said he was, they said, quote, Jewish groups and unions grow uneasy with Keith Ellison. Ellison was backed by AFL-CIO, United Steelworkers, Unite Here, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They brought out unpaid parking tickets from the 90s. That's what the Democrats did. Oh, man. So what are they going to do then? They recruited an Obama guy, Labor Secretary Tom Perez, and got this with the endorsement of Wasserman-Shultz and Joe Biden. He's according to Glenn Greenwald, is a pleasant, liberal, and loyal party stalwart. But he's a supporter of the TPP. But here's the thing about Perez. This is my favorite. This is what's going on Twitter. He finally admitted that the process of the Democratic primary was rigged. And how important it was to admit that the chair needs to be someone who is transparent, right? So he said we need transparency, we need being honest, right? But then Clinton supporters got on him, and then he goes to Twitter and says that he misspoke. And he tweets several times, I've been asked by friends, this is on February 8th at like 7:48 p.m. I've been asked by friends about a quote and want to be clear what I said and that I misspoke. Misspoke, the old misspoke. And then he says, as I've said repeatedly, we can't have a primary process where it is even perceived that a thumb was on the scale. And then Hillary became our nominee fair and square, and she won more votes in the primary in general than her opponents. Does the DNC think we're all just idiots? They're treating us as dumb as Trump treats the Rust Belt people. You know, he says, I'm going to, 20% tax on the Mexican products and woo. Does the DNC think we're this stupid? It's on Twitter. We're all on Twitter. We all can find your stuff. You can try to erase it all you want. But this is the problem. And then, of course, Perez has, platitude tweets like, I'm fighting like hell and, importance of transparency. This is the thing why we got to be careful of these people on Twitter. I pointed it out about when Dianne Feinstein, Democratic senator from California, she's been in the Senate for years, was posting all of this, we can't have torture, and Mr. Trump, you torture, no torture, and the records show, and hashtag resist. And then, of course, she voted to approve Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, who's all pro-torture. So don't like and retweet any of these Democrats. Kamala Harris, I see her post all this shit. I'm going to fight for you, and she didn't prosecute Steve Mnuchin. Don't buy it. Do the research. Don't just retweet or like their crap just because they're Democrats and they say on their Twitter feed. I don't give a fuck what somebody says on their goddamn Twitter feed. I care what the fuck they're voting for and where they're getting their money from. Give me someone. I don't want any more goddamn billionaires funding this. I don't want any more big banks or Wall Street. I don't want any more of those assholes funding this. I'll leave you with this last paragraph of Mr. Greenwald's article. One can spend all of one's time and energy denouncing Donald Trump, but until the systematic causes that gave rise to him are addressed and resolved, those denunciations will do little other than generate social media benefits, oh, what did I just say, and flattering applause from those already devoted to opposing him. Focusing on and attempting to counter the fundamental flaws of the Democratic Party is not a distraction from #the resistance. It is a central priority, a prerequisite for any kind of success. Couldn't agree more, Glenn. Suck it, DNC.